Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Senators Murray and Padilla for being here. Well, what the American people are seeing right now is not just horrifying. It's a direct result of choices and policies implemented by the Trump administration. The killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, tragic killings seen now by millions and millions of Americans, are horrific and can never be accepted. And it helps importune us to rein in ICE and end the violence. Under President Trump, Secretary Noem, and Stephen Miller, ICE has been unleashed without guardrails. They violate constitutional rights all the time, and they're deliberately refusing to coordinate with state and local law enforcement. This is not border security. This is not law and order. This is chaos, created at the top and felt in so many of our neighborhoods. Americans support law enforcement and secure borders, but they do not support a federal agency that routinely operates above the law. They do not support Americans getting killed on their streets and in their neighborhoods. What ICE is doing is state-sanctioned thuggery. It must stop. Republicans must work with Democrats to find legislative solutions to restore order and public safety. Congress has the authority and the moral obligation to act. What's missing is Republican will to act. After talking with my caucus, Senate Democrats are united on a set of common sense and necessary policy goals that we need to rein in ICE and end the violence. Our caucus is unified over three main legislative objectives. First, we want to end roving patrols. We need to tighten the rules governing the use of warrants and require ICE's coordination with state and local law enforcement. Second, we want to enforce accountability. There needs to be a uniform code of conduct and accountability. Federal agents should be held to the same use of force policies that apply to state and local law enforcement and be held accountable when they violate these rules, including we need independent investigations to help enforce accountability. Third, we want masks off, body cameras on. Federal agents must be prohibited from wearing masks. They must be required to use body cameras, and they also always have to carry proper identification. No more anonymous agents, no more secret operatives. These are common sense reforms, ones that Americans know and expect from law enforcement. If Republicans refuse to support them, they are choosing chaos over order, plain and simple. They are choosing to protect ICE from accountability over American lives. Let me be clear. Democrats stand ready today to pass the 5 bipartisan bills in the Senate. But the DHS bill needs serious work, and Republicans and Democrats alike owe it to the American people to get it right. It's now on Leader Thune to separate out the DHS bill, just as Speaker Johnson did in the House, and start working with Democrats to rein in ICE, imposing oversight, accountability, and empowering local law enforcement in our communities. Our communities deserve it. The American people deserve it. Senator Murray.
Well, Democrats are ready to avert a shutdown. We have 5 bills we all agree on, about 95% of the remaining budget. It is ready to go. We can pass those 5 bills, no problem. All Leader Thune has to do is tee them up for a vote. The ball is in the Republicans' court. But when it comes to DHS, we cannot ignore what happened on Saturday, especially after what we have seen over the last 12 months. We have to split this bill off and grapple with the brutal reality that ICE and CBP are out of control and endangering American citizens. The brutal killing of Alex Pretty was an inflection point for this country. We are saying enough. DHS agents shot and killed another person in broad daylight. He was a legal observer. He went to just help a woman, and then he was tackled, disarmed, and shot in the back. Then, instead of conducting the most basic oversight, the administration has attempted the most blatant cover-up. Instead of even acknowledging this was a tragedy, they tried to slander a VA nurse as a domestic terrorist. This cannot stand in America. That's why we are demanding Republicans work with us on serious reforms to rein in this department. That is why the vast majority of the American people are demanding we do, and what many Republicans are now calling for as well. So we need members on both sides to sit down and include critical reforms and accountability measures within the DHS bill. And there is no reason whatsoever for that work to hold up the other 5 bills and cause a shutdown. We do this all the time. We move forward on the areas where we have an agreement. We roll up our sleeves and keep negotiating on other issues. And it's not like the House can't come back and vote on this too. That's what the Senate did when the House rewrote a spending agreement back in 2018, right after we had left for the holidays. So there's no good reason for Republicans not to work with us here. They know as much as we do that NOM and ICE and CBP need to be reined in. We've heard them talk for years about government overreach and out-of-control federal agencies and the importance of things like the First and Second and Fourth Amendments. Well, that is exactly what we are seeing right now. Rogue federal agencies infringing on America's most basic rights and making our communities less safe. We need to remember Republicans already gave ICE an enormous slush fund, which every Democrat voted against. Republicans voted to cut Secretary Noem a blank check and fund those roving bands of federal agents who have been knocking down doors without the slightest cause and without legal warrants. Republicans voted for federal agents attacking, detaining, and killing Americans simply because they disagree with the administration's brutal tactics. Republicans voted for that unprecedented funding with no oversight, no accountability, which has now resulted in federal officers and agents first killing a mother in her minivan trying to drive away, and now has led to a legal gun owner with the legal right to conceal and carry being killed and slandered as a terrorist by this administration. Republicans voted to put federal agents in the streets with barely any training who are not focused on de-escalation, not wearing body cameras, and explicitly not working with local law enforcement and officials, all of which makes our communities less safe. Now is the time for senators to sit down, find a path forward to address what our Republican senators finally agree is a problem. And while we do that, are they really going to insist on shutting down childcare and clinical trials and air traffic control and so much more if DHS doesn't get all of its funding right now? Well, I really hope not. I know there are senators on both sides of the aisle who want to get these other 5 bills passed as soon as possible. And I also know there are members on both sides who are horrified by the killing we saw Saturday and the way ICE and CBP have operated. There are Republicans who agree with us on these reforms. So now is the time to stand together, pass these 5 bills, and work on those badly needed reforms.
Senator Medea.
Thank you, Leader Schumer, Senator Murray. Yes, today we say no more. No more of an out-of-control, militarized ICE roaming the streets of communities across the country. No more terrorizing our communities and detaining innocent children. No more beating and detaining Latinos simply for the color of our skin and because we occasionally choose to speak Spanish. No more killing United States citizens who are out peacefully protesting or monitoring this activity. That's brought us to this point. We're all here because the whole world watched as ICE and CBP officers killed 2 Americans over the course of 2.5 weeks in Minnesota. Not because those shootings were unavoidable, but because Trump's ICE and CBP are out of control and seem to be empowered by this administration to act with impunity. In the wake of Renee Good's tragic death a few weeks ago, it didn't take the administration long to try to blame her and send a message to ICE agents that they, according to the administration, had complete immunity. Number one, no, they don't. Number two, it's the opposite message to send. And it should not shock anybody that less than 3 weeks later, we saw the shooting in the back of Alex Preddy. Our position is clear. Separate the Department of Homeland Security spending bill from the rest of the bills, and let's work on meaningful reforms. But I guess the real question to our Republican colleagues is this: how many more videos do they need to see? How many more masked agents coming out of unmarked cars, kidnapping people off the streets? How many more citizens need to die in broad daylight before they agree enough is enough? There must be real oversight and accountability. Yes, for the agents on the ground, but also from the leaders giving them their orders. ICE and CBP are not above the law. I also want to be clear about this. This is not a political or even a policy disagreement over immigration. It's about the responsibility of the federal government and everyone representing federal departments and agencies to operate lawfully and professionally. That's not hard to comprehend. Most Americans get it. The vast majority of Americans across the country are infuriated by Trump's cruel, relentless, vindictive mass deportation campaign that has rounded up, the vast majority of the folks that they have rounded up do not have violent or criminal records. For mass agents, detaining people so aggressively, often violently, and also call your attention to, once they're detained, the horrible conditions many of them are being held in. I saw with my own eyes in California City last Tuesday, the largest detention facility in California. You've seen the videos out of Texas and now Maryland and others about the conditions that detainees are being kept in. And all for what? If the letter from Attorney General Bondi to Governor Walz is any indicator, it has nothing to do with public safety. The demand for their voter rolls tells you what this is really about. It's about trying to rig the next election and their desperate attempt to hold on to power. It's despicable and unacceptable. Congress must assert its authority. Republicans and Democrats in Congress must assert our authority as a co-equal branch of government to end this chaos and reel in this administration's abuses of power. So that's what we're standing up for: true oversight, real accountability. The Department of Homeland Security cannot be allowed to receive more funds while they act with disregard to the law and the Constitution.
She asked me a question in the hall, and I said, come here, so she did.
Leader Schumer, would you accept a separate bill outside of the appropriations bills that would contain some of your demands? And what's your conversation like with the White House specifically on what you're asking?
The White House has had no specific good concrete ideas. In terms of there's two simple things to do to get this done. And we want to get it done, and we want to get it done quickly. Number one, Leader Thune has to separate the Homeland Security bill out from the other 5. He can simply put an amendment on the floor to do that. So it's simple to do, and I am quite confident it would pass overwhelmingly. Already I've seen 6 or 7 Republicans say they would vote for it. So that's what we should do, and then we should sit down and come up with strong proposals to reform ICE and rein in ICE and end the violence. Yes, yes.
As you know, a substantial portion of DHS is already funded, including with increased funding for ICE. So what exactly are you hoping to achieve by withholding funding?
What we need to do is very simple again. Rein in ICE and end the violence. That's our goal.
There's 3 demands that you laid out at the top of this press conference. Is that a red line for you, or are you willing to compromise off that list?
Look, our number one goal, these are 3 policy areas we think must be done. But what we want to do is negotiate with the Republicans and come up with a proposal that, again, reins in ICE and ends the violence. Yes, Sahil.
Would you be supportive of a CR for DHS while you do these negotiations, or should funding lapse in your view well happen?
Let me tell you, first, if funding lapses, it's all because of Leader Thune. It's on his back. He could easily fund 96% of the budget by simply putting the 5 bills on the floor. As I said, he can just do that by taking DHS out, which he can do by an amendment. And we could, I think, given the need to do this, we could very quickly negotiate a bipartisan proposal in DHS to end the violence and rein them in. Yes. Good afternoon. We have a polite journalist.
Thank you. I was raised right.
Maybe when you start your next question, you say, good afternoon, Senator.
Hey, he's from the Midwest, too. Midwest, not.
I don't think so. Hope springs eternal.
In any event, how do you lose leverage if you don't get what you want on this? And if there is a shutdown, how you explain this to the air traffic controller or the TSA agent who is not getting paid again?
Go talk to Leader Thune. We've laid out a plan, and that's the way to go. And that's where we're headed. Okay? Yes, way down there.
Have you had conversations with Leader Thune? Is he open to splitting off the 5 bills?
Look, first I wanted to talk to my caucus, and we had a very good discussion, and we are unified. And let me just say this, as you've heard from Senator Padilla and Senator Murray, you heard their passion. Our caucus is passionate about doing this. We hate seeing Americans killed in the streets or anybody killed on the streets. But we also realize that this puts our democracy at risk. It's a force of thuggery. The federal government is supporting a large force of thuggery, and we really worry about its consequences for America if we don't rein them in. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.